evening and welcome. I'm Hailey Coxon. This is Mountain Memories on the Spirit of Motorsport TV. How are we all this evening? Thanks everyone for holding out. We did have a little bit of technical issues at the beginning, but we are here, we are live, and wow, do we have a great show ahead for you. Thanks for your comments already. We've got Andre Dirkop saying good evening. Hi Roy, Hailey and Barry, great to hear again from you. Roger Barnes saying good evening all. John Kashirski saying howdy from America. Good evening, John. Roger Barnes, hello. Nigel, good evening to you. Nigel Conrad. Damien Haran saying really looking forward to listening to tonight's chat with Martin and Carolyn. Great memories of helping Carolyn when she came to race the roads in Ireland. So many great road trips and sessions. We'd love to hear more, Damien. Carolyn will be on very, very soon. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to see you regulars and newbies joining us on the chat. Make sure you share any questions that you have on the group and any comments for our guests once they come up. We've got Roy and Barry joining us very soon. We've got some great pictures to share with you. But yes, tonight's guests are a phenomenal lineup. Mr. Martin Bullock and Carolynn Sells will be joining us very shortly. And before we do move on and invite Mr. Martin Bullock into the studio, let's bring the boys on, shall we? Mr. Roy Moore and Barry Wood. Good evening.
Evening, campers. Again. Oh, there he is. He's finally made it. Bit of a delayed start in TT terms. Barry thought with Carolyn being on and you being on that it was an edition of Loose Women we were going on to tonight. So he went and got dressed up in drag, and then when he found out it wasn't, he was back with us in his normal T-shirt. So Barry looking forward to it. Stressed out to buggery apparently, but
it was much more stressful than that.
Still got his hair and makeup on though.
No, I had trouble on the line. I had to go straight to the pit for about 9 minutes, and I eventually got away at the tail end of the field. But I thank God for that.
Yeah.
It would be much easier. I think it'd be much easier taking the cam box of a Manx Norton and rebuilding it blindfolded than actually trying to get online with all this technical jargon, but good job as people know what they're talking about, because I'm not one of them.
Well, we appreciate you getting your head around it, Barry. You're on here, you're with us, we're continuing the series, and we've got all your loyal followers and viewers here as well. So it doesn't matter if we're delayed, we're on here. So I can't wait to get going for tonight's, inviting tonight's guests on as well. We've got more comments. We've got hey guys from Nigel Conrad, Jan Silgerstrom. Hi John, and saying hi to everybody. Jeremy Gill says thank you from me and all the others who regularly share your garden. I'm guessing that's going to be Martin's garden. We'll mention that in just a sec. So boys, you suggested to we've got, well, actually, one of our viewers suggested Martin to be invited onto the show. And then when we discussed it, you also recommended how great it would be to get Carolyn to join him with him on the show as well. So tell us a little bit what we should expect this evening, Barry, from the great Mr. Martin Bullock and Carolynn Sells. Well,
maybe it would have been a good idea to get Carolyn to speak first, because once Martin starts yapping, he might not. Well, in taking Carolyn first, what she did was achieve Manx Grand Prix history. It was something a few of us thought could potentially happen one day, but when she got into the front on the last lap or the third lap, when she didn't stop the fuel that time, it was an exceptional event, and I was right there. I had been out that morning. I was in the pits that day, saw Carolyn cross the line, went to the winners enclosure, and it was a magical moment. It was quite an emotional moment as well, as it always is. And when you look back now, you think, well, I was there at that time. I'll let Carolyn tell that story anyway. That's her story to tell. That's why she's going to join us tonight. Martin can go back probably, I don't know, many years. I don't know when Martin was first involved. He'll tell you that as well. But I would say mid-80s, really, since he first had a rider on his bikes, and any things grew over the years, and he's had an awful lot of riders on his bikes over the years. had an awful lot of Manx Grand Prix wins as well. And they have him join us. I think the last time I even seen Martin was up at the Thamples Corner at his mum's garden where the spot is about 3 years ago. And that seems like a lifetime ago anyway. So I'm sure between the pair of them, we'll keep you entertained.
And Roy, you must have commented on a fair amount of Martin's riders over the years, being at Ramsey Hairpin there, and he's been quite the sponsor at the Manx Grand Prix and also mentor really to so many great names, hasn't he?
Highly organised, and that's the thing about it. It's hard to imagine when you see him now, but he was a runner in his early days, and that's how we first came to know him, really. Martin Bullock. There was quite a few of the stars around there that took up athletics, and it was again a thing that you always read the reports in the Isle of Man of who's doing what. So from a very young age, you find out who are the runners, who are the badminton players, who are the footballers. There are many, the golfers and all that, and then it just followed on from there. We're going to ask him a few questions, obviously, about how it all started. There was a bit of information revealed the other day that it was actually John Crellin, a Manxman of note, who sadly lost his life on the mountain course, but had an ambition to go to the top of Everest, nearly did it. But certainly, apparently, he was involved in athletics, and probably Martin will be giving us the story that he took up motorcycling, not Martin, John Crellin did. And Martin, I think, was one of the first to help him out. And it just grew from there. And it's a bit difficult because we have had a conversation and I said, long time no see. But unfortunately, during practice week, we're in different things. We're kind of here, there and everywhere. Over the last few years, we've been involved with family. So we don't see much of anybody in the Bullock team. We see their setup, the professional setup that they had with everything exactly as it should be. But then we disappear for race week. And obviously there's no contact there, but we see the MVR Racing logo coming towards us and have done many, many times at Ramsey Hairpin. And what a memorable day that was down there, because I think Neil Kent and Dan Sale were battling in the 250 class. And then behind them, Carolyn was making history. Certainly we've got plenty of opportunity between us tonight, Barry and myself, to question them. But as Barry says, the big danger could be to getting a word in edgeways when you bring onto screen Martin Bullock.
Right, we'll bring him on very soon. We've just got some more comments to share. Thanks everybody for getting involved in the chat. Good evening to Dan O'Neill. He's saying hi guys. We've also got Carlos saying number 88, Ralph Crellin saying welcome to the ladies, and then we've got Leslie Trotter saying how do you become a millionaire racing motorcycles? Simple, start off a multi-millionaire. Truth. Okay, so we've got Mick Chatterton's in the house as well. Good evening, Mick. Thanks for joining us. Wonderful to see you pop up on here. Francis Anderson says romance is when your bloke sends you a link to the show because you missed the road racing. Oh. Yes, that's a good bloke, Francis. All right, so Mr. Martin Bullock, welcome to the studio.
Hiya. Thank you very much for inviting me. And wow, boys, that was a wonderful introduction you gave me. I'm very humbled, seriously.
Not a problem, Martin. You're most welcome, and it's been a bit of a trial, like, hasn't it, really, from those early days all the way through. And certainly Barry will have from the top of his head, will be able to name all the winners and stuff like that. But how did it actually start? Was it John that got you interested in helping out?
It was John. John was a friend of mine through the running, and he invited me to a party on Boxing Night 1987 at his house, and little did I know then, he introduced me to two guys called Alan and Mike Kelly, Manning Collections, and I'd been thinking about maybe helping someone out at the TT, and they'd been thinking the same thing. So he put us together, and that's how we started. We bought, and after FZR 1000. I think it was a Genesis for John for the following year's TT. And I must say, it's the most expensive Boxing Day party I've ever been to. But that's how it started.
All those years ago.
1988, first TT, yeah.
TT, straight in with the TT, was it?
Yeah, because John was the only one I really knew. And so we just thought, we'll do that. I mean, it was on a very amateurish basis, you know. It grew over the years, but we didn't know very much those first couple of years.
Who was working at the bikes then, Martin? Who was working at that bike? Because it wasn't much to do, I suppose, with the FZR 1000.
It wasn't. You just put the key in and went. So John looked after it. And then after John, I'm thinking of the succession then. We ended up in 1993, I think it was 93, we had Phil Corlett. There was a couple in between, but we had Phil Corlett. Sadly, he had quite a big accident at Derby Road before the Manx Grand Prix. And I got an RC30 at that point, and we got approached by Brian Venables. Would we help him out? He wanted to borrow a motor, and I said, well, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it properly. Let's run our bike. And he finished second that year, and that was like amazing, like, you know, to be on the rostrum. And we thought, right, and from there it just snowballed. You know, the following year he did the double, and really we never looked back.
Was the RC30 in the standard colours? You weren't. You didn't have any specific. When you associate with the Bullock colours of later on, it's the black, and of course the yellow motif with the MBR Racing. But did you keep? There's something in the back of my head that Brian Venables was kind of standard colours.
It wasn't
on
standard,
the RC30.
It was white with red, and the reason for that is that the bike I bought off Simon Beck. It was an ex-Simon Beck bike, and it was one of the last RC30s built in Britain, and the chassis number was SB1. So it's quite a trick bike. It's actually on display in my house because it had a lot of success. You know, Brian was second, then Brian won on it. Mike Casey won on it. Roy Richardson led 2 Manxes. The first one he finished third in. The second one he led at halfway, and we had a 25-piece seal brake on the clutch master cylinder as he came into the pits. If we'd have got out of the pits, we'd have probably got away with it. But so yeah, you know, that bike had very special memories. And you're right, it was red and white. The black and the yellow came about 97, 98. Oh, okay. That photograph, that's a 600. And very early on, Ron Grant was involved with us in prepping the bikes, and that was actually his bike that Brian rode. Yeah. Gosh, that's a photograph I've not seen for ages. Wow.
Anybody coming to the Isle of Man would be highly recommended to make their way to Peel and have a look at what is on display down there at the Kellys in Thingbarry, aren't they? There's a terrific collection of replicas, and Charlie Williams' collection, I think, is in there, and various other things. They're real enthusiasts, aren't they? Real enthusiasts.
Yeah.
The hardest thing is having the time to do that, because you don't go in there for 5 minutes. Once you get looking round and you get it happen, 2 hours goes just like that. And you'd always come out with, I haven't been out for ages, but you'd always find something you hadn't got. It's Aladdin's Cave.
Oh, it was. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Great sponsors.
Sorry.
At what point, Martin, did you go into the 2-strokes then? And why was that? Did somebody ask you to provide a 2-stroke, or did you want to go down that route as well, or instead of the 4-stroke?
Well, actually, the first 2-stroke we bought after John, because I'm thinking of things from memory. But after John, we had Norman Nean, of course, who was with us a couple of years, and he had some great results at the Manx Grand Prix.
Yes.
I bought a 1988 RS 250 Honda.
Yeah.
And there was a little batch of them in Ireland. I can't remember who I got it from now. So we bought that for Norman, and he ran that for a couple of years. So that was like the first of the two strokes.
1990.
Pardon?
1990.
Yeah. That's right. I think he rode for us 90 and 91, something like that. He finished 4th in the Manx.
He was number 3 in the lightweight race. I remember going around a whole lap with Norman one time. I remember that bike well.
Yeah.
There's a calendar came out, and for the September was Norman on that bike at Governors Bridge with me behind him. I'd forgotten about that bike as well, but I do remember. Wasn't Harry Corbett's, was it? No.
It was brand new. Some guy in Ireland had a crate of them, about half a dozen of them, and he sold them off. And top of my head, I think it was about $6,000, something like that. But it was a nice little bike, and Norman did the Manx, he did the Southern, did a few other things. It's a nice little bike.
Yeah.
If I could just share some comments. We've got lots of great comments and a couple of questions for you here, actually, Martin. So good evening to Patrick Slynn. He's joining us. Christian Hirsch saying hello from Austria. And Gavin Bell is saying good evening, boss. Dan O'Neill says, I remember you guys as I was coming through TT 2 years. I don't know if I'll remember some of the course. One practice lap. Fine, can't wait till next year. That's from Dan O'Neill. Russ is saying a lesson learned that day, Martin. Never buy aftermarket clutch seals for 25p. A genuine RC30 seal for 15 quid would have been better. And we've got
well, yeah, actually, there's a slight story to that, because at that point we had a ZXR 750, and Roy couldn't get on it. We had a lot of problems with setting it up, and Roy wasn't very happy with it. So we went back to the RC30, which we had actually retired. We brought that out, and he finished the practice on it, and then we did the race. And unfortunately, it did have a genuine RC30 clutch, but it had been sat in a warehouse for too long, and the thing had just sort of dried up. So that's the story of that one, Carlos Kemford. Yes.
We've got Gavin Bell commenting. He's got a question for you. I'm intrigued. He says, what's the strangest thing you found in your plug hole, Martin? I think this is...
Okay, he's probably going to remind me of something here, but he asked me, he put on a message just before about, do I still pick my own trainers, which is true, I do. I still pick my own trainers. That will be something... Anyone who knows me well enough in the paddock will know I have quite a collection of shoes, and what I would do was, especially in practice week, because I'm in the paddock quite a lot, I would always have at least 2 pairs, and I'd have like a morning pair and an afternoon pair, and sometimes I would have an evening pair as well, because I'm a bit eccentric like that. But I don't know whether I'll have a look down my bath plug hole. Elaborate, Gavin. Elaborate.
Yeah, I've got a feeling you will.
Yeah.
And we've got Carlos is saying, Martin Bullock, have you ever met the Chemical Brothers? Interesting.
I have. The Chemical Brothers have been in my house. That's another in-joke, Hailey. Yeah, let's move swiftly along from that one.
Oh, okay. Maybe we need to warm up a bit more to that one. So we've got more pictures for you. So we're going to share them. Thanks everybody for your comments and your questions. Keep them coming in, because we will share them as much as we can. We will share your comments and your questions, but we do have more pictures to join the show. So Aidan is going to share them with us.
Oh, wow.
A long time
so Barry,
ago.
I thought it best to share this because of that catalogue pose of yours, but also because of course, the Milky Quail connection to Martin.
Is that Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid?
Aye, but I haven't changed in 20 years. That's the difference.
You haven't, Barry.
No. Well, maybe about half a stone. That was just, I think that was after I don't know what this used to happen. Milky was racing, or if he was an official at that time, or if he wasn't even. I think he was still doing the Manx at that time, possibly.
I've never
And
seen
he
that
was,
photograph.
no,
Wow.
well, you won't have done because we took that. Well, I didn't take it, obviously, but my mum took it. I posted it a while back. I think it was just at the time when Milky was coming up, reaching round. He was still doing the Manx, and we just had a yarn. That's all that was all about.
Wow.
That was when Milky was a young fella with the long hair. And of course, a few years down the line, he launched into superstar. And really, he went up and I went down. I think it's the best way to describe that.
Well, I remember when I first met Milky. He did he was practicing for the Newcomers Manx in 96, I think it was. 95, 96. And
95, yeah.
Okay, 95. I didn't know who he was, and then I bumped into him on the steps going into the race office after one practice evening. I think it was the Wednesday night with his dad, Dennis, and we had a chat, and he'd just broken Philip McCallum's record. So I remember saying to him distinctly, "You don't need to do anything more now this week. Just take it easy. Get ready for the race." And what does he do on the Thursday afternoon?
Yes, an exceptional incident.
Yeah, he threw it up the road. Was it the 32nd, I think?
It was between the Brandywell and the 32nd.
Okay. And he went down the hill and he disappeared. And he threw his helmet on the road so that someone would actually notice that someone had gone over the side. Unfortunately, I think he broke his leg, and that obviously put him out of the Newcomers. But that was where we first met.
Was it?
Yeah. And wow, what a
that
talent!
Would be a morning practice, that, wouldn't it? A morning practice.
Wow. It was Thursday afternoon.
Thursday afternoon, was it?
But I think it was misty up there. I think
it was misty. That's right.
Nobody knew he'd gone up the road.
No,
and he was lying down in the hatch fence about 20 up below the road, and he couldn't move.
He put the helmet. That's why he put the helmet up so that someone would notice it.
Which must have been a terrifying thing to see as well. If you were the next one down
there all evening.
It called the desperate measures at the time.
Yeah.
That's great story.
Wow. Yeah, good stuff.
There
was another one with Milky where he got from the bungalow back to the start by borrowing somebody's trail bike and riding from the bungalow up to Brandywell, then hitching a lift on the back of somebody's bike. I think he didn't take the bike. I think the fella rode him back down to Greenfield Road and just got out for the final.
Was TT. That was TT. He'd moved on then. I think he was riding Mark John's RC45, which disintegrated somewhere up in the mountain, and that's right. And he managed to get back across country just in time to get out on a final lap on another bike. Yeah.
Well, was at the time he was running along the mountain and he fell flat on his face in a big tub, and he was saturated, and he got up and carried on, and he got down and got lit somewhere. So it was his own stuff anyway.
Yeah, that'll have been it. Starman Milky. Wow. Yeah.
Just one thing, Martin. Just want to ask you: do you have much contact with Roy Richardson?
Oh,
he's a regular on our site with this, and nothing comes back. And we have heard he's okay. It's not anything, I think he might not be a computer type of person, but for what he achieved in his career around the mountain coast and the southern, he's just walked away from it completely, I believe.
Yeah, you're dead right. Roy was the most understated, underrated rider I ever had, and I had Roy for 20 years. And there's a guy that won 9 classic Manxes for me, plus a main Manx. He won the junior Manx, broke down leading the senior Manx, all the Southern Hundreds and the pre-TT classics. And you know, on his day, he'd beat like top riders like he's beaten Brian Farquhar a couple of times at the Classic Manx. He's so underrated, so underrated.
Yeah, it's just a bit worrying but then somebody did come back to us and said, "Oh no, he's okay. He's obviously the injury he had at the end has seen him off, and his dad as well. You know, they were a kind of a combination, weren't they?"
He was riding a 550 Aprilia twin, and the front he wasn't riding for me. He was riding for friends of mine. The front wheel just went, or the front tire just went at Balagary.
Yeah,
and it was an ankle injury, but it was quite a serious one. Now, very guiltily, I've not been in touch with him for a long time, and you reminded me I really should do. But I've got some fantastic memories of Roy, and wow, he was so successful. Tell you what, you put him in the paddock, everyone would walk past him because they don't know who he is. He was so low profile, but wow, could he ride a bike?
great bit of a golfer as well. And Blackpool Football Club, you can't get away from that.
No, well, nowadays, of course, it's Man City, isn't it? Because they're winning everything. But yeah, loyally, he was a Blackpool man, and he was a golfer, all right. He would disappear for the whole day, you know, like race week, non-race day. He'd just clear off, and everyone said, "Where's Roy?" It's like, "Oh, all right, he's playing golf. He'll be back later." He was just so low profile and very easy going. He's a wonderful guy to work with.
He liked his fishing as well, Martin, didn't he? He used to go fishing.
Yeah, he'd go fishing as well. He did. I mean, when you think he's a biker, and he would always say to me before a race, the one thing he would say was, "I'll be trying," and he would be. But he had these pastimes which were the like diametrical opposite of what you would probably expect of a biker. You know, like fishing and golf.
We went up the cliffs one night with me and the dog, and it was about 8 o'clock at night, really peaceful. And I'd seen Roy's van in the car park. I thought, oh, Roy's up fishing. He'd obviously want a bit of peace and quiet. And he was the only person all around the Terradoo Reservoir. And I spotted him, and I stayed well away. And the dog seen there was somebody there, and he ran up to him. And it looked as though I'd send the dog over to have a chat with him. And I wasn't. It was very embarrassed, actually. I was up to Roy and just carried on, you know.
Couple of good questions from the listeners, I believe, Hailey.
There are. Sean Corlett's got. Well, first of all, I've got to go back to Mr. Bell. He's persistent with this question about your plug hole. Collars and cuffs, he says, to remind you, but maybe we should move on.
Honestly, I'm not being obtuse. You'll have to explain off camera. I don't know what he's talking about.
So we've got Sean Corlett saying, question for Martin. Who is the best rider to deal with and that you've worked with, and who was the worst? That's a great question, Sean. If you're happy.
I'm not going to answer the second bit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Best rider. You know, that's so difficult. You've got to look at it from the point of view of how many riders I've had. Oh God, I don't know. Overall, you guys would know better than me, maybe 70 or 80 in total. They're all different. They're all individual human beings, and they all have their own way of working. So one of the things you have to do is you have to sort of understand their mindset. And Roy said it right at the start, like we were very well organized. I would say, yeah, we were pretty meticulous. You learn things, you plan, It's always about a plan, but every year you're learning different things. Now, sometimes you bring a rider in and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't click. You call it chemistry, whatever you like. And like, I'm not going to name names because it's not a fault of anyone. It's just like a personality type of thing, and they're not really comfortable in the setup that we have, and they might be better on their own. And you can look through the record books. There's 1 or 2 people we've had, they've gone on and won after moving from us. They were great riders, but we just couldn't get a proper working relationship. But I can't really say who's the best rider. We had so many. I couldn't single anyone out, and I think it'd probably be really unfair. I enjoyed working with an awful lot of people, and there was a couple where we just didn't click. But that's life, isn't it? You're never going to click with everybody. I probably avoided that question completely.
It's good. It's fair enough.
The best rider is the one you were helping at the time, whether they win or lose. Yeah.
Good statement. Good statement. Then.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Very good ending. And John Kashirski also asks you, what are your thoughts when your rider and bike wins at the Manx?
Oh, wow. It's hard to explain because I'm about the plan. And this win has not happened because, as some people think, you've got the best bike and the best rider. That doesn't always actually work. And that doesn't work at the TT either. So we have a 12-month plan. Sometimes we have a 2 to 3 year plan. And all the nuts and bolts are to get to that point. And so I'll give you an example. Craig Atkinson, Acker, did the double in 2006. Now, when I approached him, we only had a short run-in of about 5 to 6 weeks before the Manx. So the target was that first year. He'd finished 5th 3 years running. So the target for that first year was to finish on the rostrum in one or other race. And then hopefully the following year, he'd be in a position where he would be able to win. That doesn't necessarily mean he will, because, the next Michael Dunlop might arrive, or we might have bad luck, but he'd be in a position where he could win. I mean, he short-circuited it and he did double that year, which was amazing. I've gone off the question. It's an amazing thing, especially there were several years in the 2000s when we ran 1-2 on the road and in the race. Particularly, I'm thinking Milky, Alistair Howarth, Seamus Green and Ian Pattinson, and the other way around in the junior. And when you've got your 2 riders on the front of the race and on the front on the road, I can't really describe it. It's almost like, people say that's a fairy tale. It's almost like a fairy tale. It's like, wow, did that really happen? And it's only like, you've invited me on here now, and I think about actually all the things we did, and it amazes me. Really, it does. It amazes me. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely, yeah. There was a great article when our next guest joins us in the studio. It was quoting you when yourself and Carolyn made history in the history books in the Manx Grand Prix, and you were just basically flabbergasted. You said, "I have to take some time out now just to process this," basically, because it's such an amazing achievement. So that has got to be, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. It's a phenomenal achievement, and we've got to invite the fantastic woman into the studio herself, haven't we, Miss Carolynn Sells, wherever she is.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, girl.
You okay? I'm good, thanks.
What do you think of it What do you think of it so far?
Rubbish. Old Morecambe and Wise.
It's good to hear the stories, because my memory's not so good these days, I have to say. Well, you guys remember a lot more than I do.
That's an age thing.
I don't know if it's age or hormones or too many knocks on the head, but
You didn't have many. You didn't have many knocks on the head.
I had a couple, though.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, it's good to hear it. It's good to listen to the stories back.
Do you know,
So-
we've got so many stories. We've
Yeah.
got so many stories, haven't we?
Yeah.
Even like you and me and what we did in the 7 years. We've got a lot of
Yeah.
stories. When you think where we started and how we got to that point,
Yeah.
it was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, started with a little bit of help on mine and my dad's bike, didn't it? And
Yeah.
then just kind of snowballed from there. So
Well, that was a plan. It was a plan with an end, and the end was you were going to win it. That was the
yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
And it was great. 7 years. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's Mike Mins and Wayne Kerwin each side of me there. Yeah. Both on 650s. So.
Yes.
At what
Previous-
point did you know, Carolyn, that you were leading that race? Did you get a board out on the course, or did you assume
No.
automatically you might, on the third lap, carry on through and get to the front end?
Yeah, I'd had a few boards. I got a couple of wrong boards as well. Someone stuck a board out for me that was meant for someone else. But no, I knew when I went through on the start of the third lap that I was out ahead, because yeah.
Where were you directly before that, Carolyn?
I was in third.
Right.
Yeah. So because I had a big tank on, a heavy tank on, so the first lap I was sixth at the end of the first lap. But that was just, the weight of the fuel, really.
Yeah.
Quarter bridge is tricky with that amount of fuel on board and stuff in the first lap. And as the fuel started getting lighter, and that the bike started going better, and yeah, I was in third at the end of the second lap, and then I took the lead by 20 odd seconds, I think, at the start of lap 3. And I pulled another 20 out in that lap and another 20 out in the second lap, I think. Something like that.
Wow. I think at the end of that third lap, I think you were over 60 seconds in front. I mean, one of the boys will probably know better than me, but I'm sure you were over a minute, because I was at the 13th, wasn't I, signalling? So
yeah, no, I think I was I think looking back on it, I think it was 40 odd seconds, because on the fourth lap I pulled out a second a mile to Glen Helen. I pulled out 9 seconds from Grandstand to Glen Helen.
Right.
Yeah, so that's
the
second a mile there.
The board you got at the 13th would have been perfect, because it was me.
There was also Andy Farrell's uncle there waving at me to slow down, if you remember.
Val. Because Val used to come out signalling with me. That's right. Yes. Yeah.
And he was waving at me to slow down. I was like, oh no. I was happy at my pace. I knew I wasn't trying too hard. So
yeah.
I get a bit trembly talking about it. So
when you came in at the end of that and you were pointed into the winner's enclosure, the bike nearly ended up on its neck.
Well, that's because when I crossed the line, I'd been talking myself around the whole time, telling myself to calm down, and talking to the bike and just saying to it, keep going, let's just let's get to the end. And I held it together, and as soon as I went over the finish line, I just went to pieces. I started crying and shaking and everything. So of course then you come up the return road and everyone's clapping, and I was shaking like a leaf. And they stopped me right at the top of the holding area, and it's on a slope and an bank there, and I ain't got the longest legs, do you know what I mean? And they were wobbling, because I was shaking so much, because I was,
it was a tense moment.
Just went, yeah,
I was right. I was there watching that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
just imagine what it was like.
You can never replicate that emotion, can you?
No, God, no.
That feeling when you cross the line coming up the return road to all your team, you can never repeat that in your life.
No.
No, I don't think I've ever felt like that really in
No.
my life. I'm
You,
not
you
a
probably
big
won't
one
ever
for.
again, you know.
I'm
Well,
not
this
a
is
big
something
one.
I touched on recently, that winning the Manx is probably one of the greatest days ever. Whatever
Oh,
else you do in life,
absolutely,
you can never ever repeat that.
No.
You
absolutely.
know,
I
and
mean,
there's very few go on to win the TT. There's a few, but not many. And I
No.
think for many who win the Manx, that is hands down is the greatest day of your career,
Yeah,
if
it
not
is.
your
It's the
actual life.
peak of your career.
absolutely, and
Definitely.
you know, it's something I dreamt about since I was 12 years old when I first went to the Manx. You know, probably not the entire time, but after a few years of going to the Manx, you start thinking, "Oh, I'd love to do this when I grow up," and you know, and it was always an ambition to do it. And then when I did it, I realised it wasn't too bad, and I was aiming for third in the newcomers race and 100 mile an hour, and I finished fourth and did 99.98, I think it was, in the
Yeah.
newcomers race. But then I did 101 in the ultra lightweight race. So you know, you never know. Also with the mountain course, you don't know how well you're going to get on with it until you actually do it, you know. So before then it's all a pipe dream, and then when you start doing it and you start thinking, oh, maybe, you know, maybe I've got a shot at this one day.
Mm.
So yeah, but I knew for a few years that I was capable of it. You just need everything to fall into place, don't you? You know.
But
Building
you were
block.
in that situation with a father who races as well. Racing was in the family, wasn't it?
Yeah, so dad helped me from the beginning, getting the first bike and racing and everything, and we used to go and do derby and all that, and you know,
Did
and
you
also
race his
helping
TZ?
him.
Did you race your
uh
dad's two-stroke?
I did. I raced
I
the first
saw.
bike I rode was his 350, I think.
Oh, you did.
Yeah,
You froze up
Oh, I
there.
didn't
I
know
did
that.
that up at derby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez. Was that the first bike you raced?
I had I had a go on that for the first time, and then
Respect.
The first
and
time
then
the first time I spotted you was at Derby. That's the first time we
yeah,
talked. Now, I think
that's right. Yeah, that was
we
in 2002, or I think
yeah, it was the year
Dad
before.
approached you, did he?
Yeah, and I said, let's do the Manx the following year, I think. Yeah, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, because I raced away a lot in 2002 as well. We did
Mm,
New Era in the UK. So
yeah.
yeah, I raced with Dad's TZ first, and then Dad got hold of a 400 from, oh gosh, can't remember who it was now. Somebody's known for years anyway, and we got that prepared for the 2001 Derby event up at which was when the TT was cancelled.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was prepping it on outside the house, and Manx Radio came by and interviewed me for the non-TT races.
Well, it would have been a surprise to see anything going on, I suppose.
Yeah.
And did you,
Yeah.
Roy? Were you commentating the day that Carolyn won that race? Were you on
Yeah,
TV
we
that
were.
day?
We were privileged to a bit of information beforehand. It didn't make absolutely no difference at the end. Carolyn won the race start to finish, but we'd been tipped off by Wayne Edgerton,
Oh,
who
yes.
was a
Yeah.
great help to Dan Neen at that particular time, and he just gave us the nod. We're professional enough, I would think, to say that you wouldn't go blabbing it out when you were doing it on the build-up. But once the race was underway, we had that bit of information stored and did announce it, I think, on the second lap. The way things worked out, the results book from the Manx Grand Prix shows that you were actually seventh on the first lap at 103, up to third on the second lap at 104, 105 on the third lap, and then on the fourth lap 106. So as
That's
the fuel was
that's
going
the race
down.
average, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
because I actually lapped it just shy of 108 on the last two laps.
Yeah.
Even in that, the wind and the rain, and we had rain at Ramsey, we had standing water at Hanley's. There was
Wow, I didn't
really,
remember.
really windy.
Oh, I didn't
Oh
remember
yeah, there
that.
was. Yeah, do you remember they swept the road beforehand Greba Castle because there was a load of standing water, and then they dropped the bristles all over the road, so that delayed the race for half an hour. So
Oh right, I can't remember that.
yeah. Well, you'd have been up at the 13th, wouldn't you? But I was standing on the start line, shaking a bit.
Was that the same bike you had the year before, Carolyn, when you come off of the bungalow? Was that the year before or 2 years?
No, so the
Different
year
one.
before it was Martin's NC35.
Right.
That I'd raced for a couple of years. That's the one that I crashed out a third on the year before. The bike that I actually won on belonged to Paul Morrissey, and it was him that came up with the strategy as well. That was Paul's idea, and he put a lot of work into that bike, you know. So we owe a lot to him as well.
Definitely,
for that,
totally.
don't we?
Totally.
Yeah. So, but that bike, he still owns that bike. It's now sitting in Murray's Museum in Santon.
Mm.
That's right. I seen it there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on display down there. So, it's nice to see it down there. I took the kids down last year.
Well, he did the job the year before with Dan Neen, and I'd known Damien for a long time through Roy, because he was part of the Blackpool Mafia, really, as we call them. And I'd seen what he'd done. I think we'd both seen what he'd done with Dan, and we thought the best shot Carolyn has got is with the guy who knows exactly how to do it. So that's why we went the route we did, didn't we? And,
we put, we did there was a lot of strategy going on in practice, getting the bike. We really concentrated on getting the bike set up for me, so that I was really, really happy on it. We were concentrating a lot on the fuel consumption and the jetting. So it wasn't just, and we weren't trying to break any records in practice either. It was all about getting everything ready for that race. And when I look back on it now, I can't believe how well it all went together, because we all know, there's so much of it's about luck as well in the Manx, isn't it?
It is.
But it just, everything, all the stars aligned and everything fell into place. And it was an amazing time in my life.
Of course it was. It's
some great comments.
When the plan comes together, wow. That's what it's all about. The plans come together, perfect. Yeah.
We've got Steve Stelfox saying Carolyn winning was one of the best days I've ever had at the Manx.
Oh, that's nice.
Neil says, I miss the Isle of Man. Lovely to see you, Carolyn and Martin. And John Kashir saying it's great to listen to this with Martin and Carolyn. Thank you so much to TSOM for making this happen.
Sharon, hi. Sharon,
yeah.
We have a couple of questions here as well for you. So we've got, does Carolyn remember me? This is Roger Barnes. Does Carolyn remember me putting her first on the road during practice first year she rode for Martin?
Oh gosh, I know you, Roger Barnes. So I can't. Honestly, my memory is not very good. I've inherited my bad memory off my dad. So remembering small details is not what I'm the best at, unfortunately. And names, but yeah, I remember what it was like to first line up on that road. Yeah, everything. I used to shake until the flag went down, and then I'd be all right as soon as I set off. But it's just so nerve-wracking, that first bit where
that's the way it has to be, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Adrenaline. If you didn't have that adrenaline, it wouldn't be worth even.
Absolutely.
Adrenaline
is good.
You don't like it, but it's got to be that way.
Oh no, it's true. Adrenaline is good, as they say.
You just don't think so.
We got two opportunities.
Like I was going to drop the bike, though, so it had to happen at one stage. It just had to happen in the winners enclosure, didn't it?
We don't mind in there.
No, at least that's the end of the race. Then it's fun, isn't it? So, yeah.
So we've got Russ making a comment here as well. He's saying, amazing that you achieved your dream before you grew up as well, Carolyn.
I'm not sure I have grown up yet. I'm getting old.
Overrated. Gail Core says, Carolyn, you have a few Irish roads under your belt where you were the fastest female too. Which was your favourite Irish track and why? Great question, Gail.
Good question.
Scaries. Has to be Scaries, Gail. Now, I love Tandragee, yeah, but Tandragee had a big crash there, and then the second time I raced there was another big crash that stopped the meeting. So, but Scaries was always great. Scaries was a big party as well, you know, and a great little circuit. I love the circuit. I like fast circuits, you know, so I loved all the Irish roads, but yeah, I'm still the fastest woman at 4 of them, I think.
Wow.
Yes.
I think. Yeah. And it's what, 13 years since I rode there. So yeah.
Wow.
That sounds like such a long time now, doesn't it?
Mm.
You know, where's the last 13 years gone?
Don't know.
Yeah. We've got Graham Clutterbuck saying, fantastic lady. Thank you, Graham, for your comments. Marvelous to hear your story. Fantastic achievement. Also, Andy Carouche says, this has to be the most in-depth behind-the-scene road race channel on the internet, talking to people who know exactly what it takes to be involved and giving an insight to not just the racing, but the behind the riders as well. I agree. It's an absolute honor. So, John Koszewski's asking you, did you race at Amoy?
No, Amoy wasn't running when I was racing in Ireland. I can't remember what year it started up again. It might be, is it 2012? So no, I did Scaries, Killer Lane. I like Killer Lane. That was the first one I ever did in 2004. And then I did Walderstown, Atay, Faugheen, Tandragee, Cookstown. I did the Northwest. But those are the only 3 I did in the north. So there wasn't a lot going on in the north when I was running there, really. I think a few of them weren't running, and then they started up a couple of others, and the Bush started up, and then Armoy. Oh no, Bush is down south, isn't it? Sorry.
But Bush is in. It is actually in the north. But, yeah.
Oh, is it? Oh gosh,
Yeah,
sorry, I'm getting confused.
Tyrone.
Oh,
That was never there in my time. That didn't exist.
No.
Armoy didn't exist when we were going. The other ones that did exist had disappeared.
Yeah, quite a few of the Irish road races would run for a few years, and then maybe they didn't run for a few years. Organised by small committees in different areas, aren't they? So
yeah. Can I ask you, Martin, while we get the chance, maybe you'd like to say a few words about the Tommy Club, about what it consists of? You know, I mean, it's your brainchild. Maybe a lot of people would like to hear about that.
Sure. I can't take total credit. It was a joint thing. Obviously, we're talking about the great Tommy Clucas, first man ever to do 120-mile-an-hour lap at the Manx Grand Prix. And you know, I've got a little shudder going down me right at the moment. I wonder if he'd have been allowed to, what he might have gone on to achieve. He was just amazing. But anyway, as a tribute to him, we wanted to do something that was a bit different to here's a trophy, whatever. And the obvious thing was to set up a club for Manx Grand Prix riders only who lapped at 120 mile an hour in a Manx Grand Prix race. And we put a proposition to the Manx Motorcycle Club so that we could incorporate this in the overall prize evening. And they suggested that we should limit it to 36, 1 year for one for each year of his life, which actually we thought was a great idea, that it had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, when we set it up, and it was a joint thing between myself, his family, his friends to do this, and they very kindly asked me, would I be like master of ceremonies at the villa on the evening and induct all the new members, which is a big buzz for me. Believe me, I mean it's a very emotional thing. I don't get emotional much, but it's a really emotional thing that I was asked to do it, and I love doing it. It's a great honor. So we're at number 26. Now, we had no idea when we set out in 2004 how long these 36 places would take to fill. Did we think it would be as long as it has been? Probably not, but that shows how far ahead Tommy was. You know, what a groundbreaking achievement that really, really was. And there's still 10 places to go. I'm sure we'll have a Manx Grand Prix next year. I don't think we'll fill 10 next year. So I think we'll be looking at 2023, possibly 2024, which would be like the 20th anniversary, which probably is a fitting time for it to be concluded. And one of the interesting things for me is how much riders who didn't know Tommy, say, for example, from last year, when did we last have a Manx? I can't remember. But so, yeah, right. James Hind, for example, or you know, Nathan, who couldn't have known Tommy, but what great regard they have for him and the achievement and being in the club and what it really means to the boys. So that's very flattering. It's a big comfort to the family, I'm quite sure. And to me, and you know, that I'll tell you that day, and I'm not going to get too heavy, but Carolyn was part of the team that day, and the Friday, my team had we had a big decision to make, and I'd actually said to the family, did they want us to actually race on the Friday? And they said yes. So we did, and I know how tough.
That was a really tough race, wasn't it? I actually thought about the junior earlier when you were talking about having so many, because there was actually about 5 of us in the junior that week, wasn't there? We had a big team in that race that week, and then there was a few of us in the ultra lightweight and a few of us in the senior in the afternoon. So yeah, that was a tough week.
It was a tough week, and I know from my own point of view, you know, I'm the front person, so it all stops with me, really, as in I've got to set out what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and I do know that on the Thursday night I used to signal at the 13th, and I said to my mother on the Thursday night, I cannot face going out on the Friday morning to signal. I just can't do it. And she actually made me go and do it. So yeah, but you know, the wonderful thing out of all that bad situation is that how well Tommy's regarded, how well he's respected, how well he's remembered. And
his legacy lives on, doesn't it? His legacy lives on through.
Massively. That 120 will always be in the history books. The Manx Grand Prix, that will always be in people's minds. So, I mean, that is a wonderful thing.
Martin, I have to share this comment with you. Andy Carush is saying, Martin Bullock Racing is synonymous with backing the up-and-coming riders, and the road racing scene would be very different without the input of him over the last 30-plus years. I've never even met him, even though I'm living 500 yards from his famous Signpost Garden. We all hold you in high esteem, Martin. Agreed.
Wow, Andy, that's seriously, that's lovely. Thank you very much. It's really flattering. Do you know, it's very humbling, because I've always operated in, like, I felt like a kind of a vacuum. And, you know, we have the team and people come and people go, people win and they move on and whatever. And I've always just felt we've just done our own thing. It's only looking back now that I've retired that, I think, like, wow, did we really do all that? You know, Carolyn and Milky and Mick Skeen and and Tommy and yeah, but it's humbling. It's really, honestly, it's very humbling.
So many great names. I mean the other people, by the way.
And you.
You know, but Milky and Akko, and you know, we had some great times, didn't we?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, Russ Henley and Gavin Bell and Seamus and
Paul Curran
and
Andrew
then
Brady on your bikes.
Yes, now that was an interesting. Andy was an interesting one because I'd seen him in the newcomers in. You'll know the dates better than me. I think the newcomers was 08. I think his newcomers was 08. And I'd seen
it was towards the end of my time.
Yeah, and I thought he looks good. So I'm pretty sure it was 08 and 09. Now Sharon, who's watching this, she would know. She could message in. We ran her husband and Andy and Andrew Neil, and he fell off the 750, I think, on the Monday night of practice, and he had to go away to hospital because he damaged his thumb. So he was out of the race. Now I wanted to bring Andy Brady in as a substitute, so I went to the race office. I said, "What's the chance?" Because he's actually entered. So there was no argument about that. He'd actually entered and he was in the program. So they said, "Can't do it." And I said, "Well, why not?" So they said, "Well, he would have had to have started practice by the Wednesday and you won't be able to get him here in time." And either that year or the year before at the TT, I'm pretty sure that Michael Dunlop had started practice. You guys will know better than me. He'd started practice later in the week than I wanted to have this done. But anyway, we couldn't get him. So following year, I made sure and we got him in. And he had a bit of a mixed bag, but unfortunately, his father passed away before the junior race. So he had to go back home. But in 2011, everything clicked and he won the double and he was amazing. It was a very poor week for weather. It was pretty atrocious, actually. I mean, the junior was like riding in a car wash, but he won them both. And yeah, that's Andy Brady.
Probably several others as well. I like to think about it, but
say again.
There's probably quite a few other names as well I haven't touched on.
How many?
There's bound to be. Do you know, I've had 19 individual winners, or 19 different riders have won at Mikey Evans recently. We've won 34 Manxes with 19 different riders, so that's probably not as bad. Probably quite good, that. And I'm going to forget some of them, aren't I? Russ Henley, obviously, I've just mentioned is a character well known to us all. Wow, Gavin Bell won the lightweight, and Gavin was a big lad. Gavin was way over 6 foot. He's probably going to send the message in a minute. I don't know what would Gav be, about 6'2", and would you say 14 stone?
I don't, that's me.
Okay, well,
I couldn't say.
Get me into trouble. He's huge. Gav Bell's really tall.
Yeah, he's a well-built lad, and he won the lightweight, which was incredible. And we'd had problems with that bike. I remember it was the Vimto Honda that Milky won on and Pete Turnbull won on. We wanted to try and get a hat trick on that one bike, and we'd had problems all week. And on I think it would have been the Wednesday, there was a practice lap after the junior, and he got to Crosby Stores, and the thing blew up again. And I remember he said to me on the Thursday, he didn't expect to be on the top of Bray Hill shopping fuel station. and he did the 4 laps and he won it. Are you thinking of some more names now?
I've got, so
probably
before
will
we
later.
say our goodbyes, we've got 2 questions for you, Martin.
Yep.
One is about the pink knickers from the paddock. You've got an interesting story to tell us about that. Are they yours?
Should we do that first? Okay. Carolyn, you'll remember this possibly.
What?
Well, this was 2006,
Pink
and Aka was riding for us. And the paddock, for people who don't know and they're not really involved in it, in those days, the paddock was a very communal place, and it had its own sort of lifestyle. And Aka was in his truck, and there was a truck parked next to him, and there was a clothesline going between the 2 trucks, which sometimes happened when people wash their clothes and, you know, hang them out to dry. So anyway, around about the Monday of practice week, like right at the start of the practice week, this incredibly large pair of pink knickers appeared on this clothesline. I mean, they were massive, seriously. So we did wonder, and we kept walking past, and after about 3 days, they hadn't moved. So the curiosity got the best of us. So we went to the guy next to Aka and we said, just, you know, we're wondering, like, are they yours? So he said, no, they're Aka's. So we're like, okay. So we went into Aka's truck and we said, whose are those big pink knickers? So we said, they're the blokes next door. So I said, well, the bloke next door thinks they're yours. So if they're not yours and they're not his, whose on earth could they be? Who would they fit? I said, they're massive. I wonder what size they are. So Russ Henley says, they're size 26. So I said, how do you know that? And he says, because the lady in Marx's said they were the biggest pair that she had in stock. So basically what he'd done on the Sunday night was he'd gone up there, stuck them up there, and he just waited to see how long they were going to last there before someone noticed on them. So that's the story of the big pink knickers, and it's size 26 are big, trust me. Does that help? Sorry, shall I go? I'm here all week.
Well, also, Martin, before we leave, we have to ask you the question as to why you did leave the MGP paddock. So why have you left it all behind you, and we've had to say a goodbye to you?
Well, there's a few reasons. 30 years was a good time, and I felt that I'd done everything I wanted to do, and nothing I would do extra would add more to my life. You know, I'm comfortable with everything that we've done. But over the last few years, and I'm sure Barry would agree, Carolyn might agree, Roy's not in the paddock quite so much, so he might not have noticed, but
Bobby.
Hello.
Sorry.
The nature of the paddock changed, and it always used to be, as I said before, like a very communal type place. And we used to have a place, like, as you came out of the Nobles Park, we were right behind the race office and the beer tent, and we had our setup, and everything else followed us. And we were always very proud of the way that looked, and the fact that there was a communal atmosphere with, like, PRF, Paul Rennie and other people. And then some genius decided to wreck that whole thing and turn it into an auto jumble sale, so that on the Monday of race week, all the classics cleared out, and it looked like, to be honest with you, it looked like the Monday after Glastonbury. And it was like all the Manx Grand Prix part of it was just left behind. So that had an effect on me. But it's always the small things. And I'll tell you what finally knocks it on the head. And I think Carolyn knows part of this story. So I have, say, 3 riders. I have an entrance license. Now, part of the privilege, you might say, of having an entrance license is I get access during practice week to pit lane. Now, it's not like a show off thing. It's like I've got 3 riders or whatever to manage. They're going to go out and practice. We need to make sure everyone's in the right place. Everything's organized. It's a lot of planning goes on in that, like, are the bikes in the right place down at the front? Are the right bikes in the right order? All sorts of stuff. So when I go to the race office and I ask for my pass and I'm asked to fill out a piece of paper, and then someone says to me, that'll be 15 quid. And I'm like, no, I'm not paying for it. This is my entrance license. It's a requirement that you have to give me a pass. So this person says, well, I'm not going to process this application to the clerk of the course unless you give me 15 quid. So I'm like, okay. So I went off and I did 2 things. The first thing was I went next door to the Classic TT office and I said, boys, I've got a bit of a problem. So they said, how many passes do you need? They'll be down in your awning in 15 minutes. And they were. And the second thing I did was I wrote a letter and I delivered that back up to the race office to pass on to the clerk of the course to explain that his staff didn't understand their own regulations and that he better maybe explain I have a right to this pass. And that was it. So it's an expensive 15 quid from the events point of view, but you know, life goes on.
But you did have an incredible 30 years in the paddock, and we are so grateful for the riders that you brought through into the races. You coach, you mentored. It's just phenomenal stories and names, and the list goes on. We really appreciate your time, Martin, and sharing your stories.
Pleasure.
Absolute pleasure to have you join us on here. And Carolyn, I got to share, there's been some great comments about you helping other people as well, learning the course, etc. And we've got Paul Cassidy saying, had the pleasure of going out for one of my Manx Grand Prix newcomers laps last year with Carolyn. Fantastic knowledge of the course, and it's great to have them share this course information with us. Hopefully we get back to it again in 2022.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you, Paul.
So we do have a video to show, Carolyn. It's a little bit of a tribute to you. So we're going to share this. It's from your YouTube channel, isn't it? So
okay, yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Excellent. That was the scariest ride of my life, I have to say.
That's a great thing to have on film as well. There's not many people probably got a film of that. That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
At least we didn't drop that chair. We didn't drop the chair, Carolyn. We had,
oh God, I thought it was going to come out of the chair, I have to say.
We had Gavin Bell. We had Gavin Bell, who, as I've described, as like well-built lad, and we got the chair like sideways in the air and dropped him on a table, and the table just went scuttering everywhere.
Well, listen,
We're not
we've
that
had so many great comments and questions for you. Thank you, everybody, for getting involved in the chat. What we do have to do, I think it's important, I'm sure all of you would agree on here, is honour Mr. Mike Hailwood and George Odell today. Both were sadly gone 40 years ago today, it was, wasn't it? So we must give them a nod and appreciation for all that they gave our sport and the imprint they firmly made on the two-wheeled and three-wheeled variety. So yes, thank you, Carolyn and Martin.
Thank
we really
you.
appreciate your time. Incredible to hear your stories. Yes, Carolyn still holds so many records in place. I love it. And Martin,
I think that was an achievement keeping the kids out of the room for this long as well. So, thank you so much for having me on.
Yes,
Good
me
to
too.
see
Thank
you
you very
all.
much. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Yeah, enjoyed chatting.
Cheers, boys and girls. Much
Bye.
appreciated. Have we got
Thank
time?
you.
And we're here we are at Ramsey Hairpin now. We're looking down the road, sweeping out of Stella Maris, that orange fairing machine, down through the box, down one, down two. Has she got enough fuel to get to the end? She's got the big tank on. Round she goes, tight into the bank on the right-hand side, up towards the waterworks. It's going to be an historic moment here as a woman wins round the 37 3/4 mountain course for the first time. Back to Tim Glover at the grandstand.
Hey.
Yay, great to hear that again.
Excellent. Brilliant. Thank you, Roy.
Cheers, campers.
Great show again. Hey, boys. Great listening to those stories. It's such a pleasure.
That was great. And but to be honest, Martin especially could easily do another hour there. You know, there's a lot he hasn't touched on. But
so much.
You only have so much time, and then you want to try and involve everybody as well, equally, sort of thing.
Their show, they're the show. They are the guests. Point us up, yap, and we can yap any other time, can't we?
I mean, you can easy enough. You can easy enough. You have to man the 20 minutes, and then think, okay, Carolyn's here too. You know, you just got to try and it's good because they were the same team that they could interact as well. Yeah, good one. Good decision.
Yeah, good stuff.
Commented on that, Roy, saying they got goosebumps. So did I. Loved it. Great. So, boys, thank you so much. I really appreciate remember, everybody, if you don't follow it already, the boys have the Mountain Memories page on Facebook. Make sure you join the group and you can get involved in the chat there and the fantastic content and pictures that they share on a day-to-day basis. And they will be back with us again in 2 weeks. Thanks, boys. Thanks, everyone, for getting involved in the chat, sharing your questions, your comments. We really appreciate it. If you haven't followed or subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, please do so. That is going to help us grow and continue to provide the content that you deserve. Thank you, every single one of you, for tuning in. I'm Hailey Coxon. This is Mountain Memories on the Spirit of Motorsport TV.